As a Gen Xer, you're reaching that age where it's time to plan for your financial future. You're also probably at that age where your school days are far behind you. But it's not too late to learn something new. Class is in session. This is the Gen X Wealth Academy podcast with Phil Telpner of Breakout Private Wealth.
Welcome to the Breakout Wealth Podcast. The Gen X Wealth Academy is together again. And of course, I'm Ron Stutz. He's Phil Telpner. Generation folks are born between, let's say, 1964 and 1984, roughly speaking. Folks from upper 30s to mid 50s. That's primarily who Phil Telpner works with, and he has a few things to say that he would like to share with you today. You folks have unique concerns and common problems that need to be solved, and you want to achieve, at some point in your life, a work-optional lifestyle. Hey, Phil Telpner, it is great to be back with you.
Great to be here, Ron. Thanks.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some really good things here coming up in just a moment. We're going to discuss 401ks, and we have some great questions coming up from some of our listeners. But again, if you'd like to have a conversation with Phil Telpner, absolutely free, no obligation, go to breakoutprivatewealth.com. There's a place there where you can schedule a 15-minute talk to address some of your basic financial concerns to see if you might be a good fit to work with Phil. And again, that is breakoutprivatewealth.com. Phone number, if you'd like to call, 224-616-2016. Well, let's get right into it here and talk about 401ks. You know, saving in your 401k can be an easy and painless way to build your retirement savings because 401ks have so many different facets to them, and you really need to know what you're doing. You can make some serious mistakes. And Phil, I was just wondering if you could tell us about a few examples of folks who have really screwed things up when it comes to 401ks and what they maybe could have done better and what folks listening out there can do a little bit better with their 401k concerns.
That's such an important topic as for our specialization, pre-retirees, Gen X, like you alluded to, the 401k or subset 403b, any employer plan is the largest, for the most part, retirement savings vehicle that they use. Now, unfortunately, no advice, unless you're working with a fiduciary financial advisor, no advice is given when you enroll, when you select your investments, when you make changes, if you make changes. I'll share a quick story.
Okay.
I have a client who worked for 20-something years for a city, be careful how I say this, for a city organization, let's say.
Okay.
When she had taken her job, when she became eligible, one of her friends just showed her what to do, fill out the 401k. She had she's young, no money, whatever, and never made changes.
Mm-hmm.
Never. And well, she was invested, I suppose correctly, for where she was at in her life. Fast forward 25 years, not so much. Thankfully, it's on my checklist of things to look at, and we were able to adjust prior to any bad market. Like, you have some risk here if you're planning on retiring in a couple years. You can be subject to some pretty uncomfortable markets that would force you to change your plans unless you're prepared in advance. So there's a lot of other things that people don't know. That 401k is creditor protected too. So I know people, I guess, brokers that'll shop rollovers, especially now that there's layoffs and that kind of stuff. And maybe that's fine, right? People need advice now, and I'm all for that. But you lose some protections if you go from a 401k to an IRA, and most people aren't aware of that. Something else that I see is somebody that's been studying and working in the investment business pretty much his whole life. Most of these plans have very poor investment choices. Poor meaning inefficient, high fee, full of what we would call proprietary funds. So Fidelity has the plan, and in the plan are Fidelity investments. So that's not something that I'm ever a fan of, although Fidelity has some good products. It's not really something that I ever want to get involved in. So really, it's always so interesting to me how the major vehicle that people use for retirement savings is all too infrequently not discussed with an advisor or really anybody. So that for sure I think needs to change.
One thing that strikes me about 401k, so many people have a 401k through their work. And one important thing to remember, and not many people really even think about this, is that you're not really the client of that 401k provider. Your employer is really the client. So, maybe you might want to look at taking a little more control yourself. Right, Phil?
Always. Well, you either want to... What happens usually is people will default into the investment options, QDIA. It's just a term, but they'll develop into the default options, which usually is what's considered a target date fund. Mm-hmm. So that's one fund that has generally by retirement year, like you're supposed to know the exact year you're going to retire. That's kind of crazy. So people just think they're going to retire at 65. It ends up being pretty inefficient. It ends up way too fixed income heavy in the early years, and perhaps based on your situation, even in the later years. But it does keep you from making big mistakes. So I don't want to push people away from using it by any means, but it is suboptimal to be kind. Ron, it also doesn't take into account for Social Security, any other streams of income, any outside assets, right? So how you invest your retirement accounts is also predicated on everything else that you have in your portfolio or investments. So if I have a client that has 36 rental apartments and has a predictable stream of income, that client's should be or perhaps should be invested different than somebody that doesn't, correct? Yeah. So it's really I want to make sure here, because everybody should max it out. You should, even if you're just starting out, get to the point if there's an employee match or something like that. It's so critical. But you can also use some help, because there are some landmines there, and not done properly, you lose, like, those early years are the best time to get a head start on your compounding, right? So I hate, when people show up at 50 years old with this just wonky looking 401k, and we pretty much have to start over. And I think about all that time and compounding that they gave up. So it always helps to get with somebody that can help you.
Well, if you'd like to have a conversation again with Phil Telpner about your situation, particularly if you have any questions about 401ks, he's well versed. He's been doing this since way back in 1987. The number to call is 224-616-2016, or maybe the best way to do this is by going to the website, breakoutprivatewealth.com. There's a place there where you can schedule a conversation with Phil, maybe a 15-minute conversation to address some of your financial concerns. Again, that is breakoutprivatewealth.com. This is the Gen X Wealth Academy. You're a part of it here. We appreciate your being along for the Breakout Wealth podcast today. And Phil, let's talk about some questions that some of our listeners have sent us. And the first one today is from, let's see here. This first question is from Jerry in Glenview. And Jerry says, I'm retiring soon, and I asked my financial advisor when I should think about starting my Social Security. He seemed completely befuddled that I'd even ask him that question and didn't seem to have any insight at all. What am I missing here? Shouldn't that be a basic part of retirement planning? Not a very knowledgeable financial advisor, huh?
Jerry, my man, if you're out there listening, well, go to my website, Breakout Private Wealth, and schedule a few minutes to chat, and I'll steer you in the right direction. But I'm also going to tell you, or anybody else listening, that if this is your situation, or even close to your situation, the first thing you do is fire your advisor. That's like going to the doctor and them not taking your blood pressure. It's malpractice, right? Besides the fact that financial advisor should be prepared to answer any of your questions, even if it requires, as sometimes it does. I'm not quite sure. Let me research that and let's get back together in a few days and I'll have an answer, right? Because, there's Social Security timing decisions are, does the spouse work? What's the claiming strategy? What's, there's tax implications. What are your feelings about longevity, right? Do you need the income now? Can you delay till? So there's a lot of questions and some statistical modeling that should go into that, but to not have any insight at all, Jerry, just fire the guy. And then, I don't know, find somebody else or call me and send me everything. Because somebody that doesn't know anything about Social Security timing, my next question after that is, what else? What else have you bought or been invested in that may not be great for you? So find somebody to talk to.
That was kind of a brainless answer that guy gave Jerry. There's no question about that. I mean,
doesn't surprise me. I've seen it. Yeah, nothing surprises me. He's probably going to sell him whole life insurance or something. Yeah. I don't know. And that's not how receiving fiduciary financial advice should be like.
Yeah. Hey, I got one more question here today, and I think you'll enjoy answering this one. It's from Ted in Northbrook. And Ted says, Phil, I really want to protect my retirement money. I'm not a big risk taker at all, but I also feel like I should be getting a better return than the stable value fund that my 401k provides. Should I loosen up and be more aggressive? You love these questions today, don't you?
Yeah. Should you loosen up and be more aggressive? I have no way of answering that because I don't know your personal situation.
Yeah.
The stable value fund in your 401k is basically like a CD. So I hope that your retirement portfolio has not consisted of the stable value fund for the last 25 years. That would be something else. Look, let me provide you something here, Ted. Or anybody else that finds themselves having these thoughts, which is very common. There is no getting away from risk.
Yeah.
So, you can trade risk. So you can trade feeling very safe today with, and I'll just use an extreme example, with running out of money in your later years. Okay? Or you can trade a little bit of uncertainty now for a better outcome in the future. Forget about the markets or anything like that. Life is uncertain. So we need to take the appropriate amount of risk. And even more important than that, Ted, my man, we need to manage that risk and make adjustments along the way, because that's the sign of a good advisor. Because life isn't linear, okay? And therefore it will require adjustments. But be mindful that the risk that you stay away from today could very well be that risk of having pretty serious challenges in your later years.
Yeah.
Did that help?
Yeah, I think so. It helped me anyway. I hope it helped Ted. Ted, thank you for giving us the question.
Yeah, good question.
Phil, before we go here today, of course, there are lots of things to think about right now as far as financial concerns go. Why is it so important for folks to reach out to you right now and have a conversation?
You're making me blush, man. Well, here's the thing. And whether it's me or somebody else that specializes, let's say, in pre-retirees, specifically Gen X, and I'm raising my hand here even though you can't see it, or maybe you can, there you go. We're at a very challenging time. We have a business or employee, we have families, we have our own retirement. Perhaps we're caregivers to parents or in-laws. Maybe not physically, maybe there's some financial responsibility there. We have most likely college for our children, and whatever that means to you and your family. And to be just perfectly honest, we're at a point in time where we can't mess it up. We don't have that extra 20 years to chop around and not be responsible. We have people counting on us, right? We're going to move pretty quick here, and you're going to wake up in your 60s and be like, how does this all going to come together, right? So whether it's me or somebody else, I think you want to look for, I know you want to look for a fiduciary financial advisor, generally speaking, a registered investment advisor, RIA. You want to look for somebody that isn't a jack of all trades. You want to look for somebody that is a specialist, that understands the challenges to your specific, where you are specifically, and can bring you along that journey to get where you want to go as your advisor. If they lead with some sort of insurance, everybody needs insurance, but that's probably a non-starter for me. There's a lot more that goes into helping people navigate and get to where they want to go than just selling them insurance.
A lot to think about here, and certainly a conversation with Phil Telpner is in order. If you're part of the Gen X Wealth Academy, we appreciate your listening to the Breakout Wealth Podcast. Again, the number to call is 224-616-2016. Schedule a 15-minute conversation to address some of your financial concerns to see if you might be a good fit to work with Phil. But go to the website, and you can arrange a conversation there. BreakoutPrivateWealth.com. We'll make it easy for you. BreakoutPrivateWealth.com. There's a place there where you can arrange it, and you'll be glad you did. Phil Telpner, it's been my pleasure to hang out with you for a while today.
Appreciate it, Ron. You are the best. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Breakout Wealth Podcast with the one and only Phil Telpner of Breakout Private Wealth.
Breakout Private Wealth, LLC, is a registered investment advisor located in Glenview, Illinois. Today's content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before taking any action.